he became effervescent during that process. It was incredible. I think he understood that it was important to come back to music and to surround himself with the people that he loved and that he loved musically. And the energy that that provided for him was like, it was unbelievable. I mean, that's why, I mean, I knew that he was very, very sick, but it was still shocking, that he didn't continue on, because the energy that he had was incredible.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest installment of Conversations with CJ Shearn. Well, I'm also known as Shizuka now, and I have a very exciting guest today. I'm so excited because her uncle was really a hero of mine, and he was always a dream interview that I wanted to do, but I never knew how to get a hold of him. So I am here with the outstanding vocalist Aubrey Johnson, and Aubrey Johnson has a bunch of accolades. She has a degree of master's performance at New England Conservatory, which is also where one of my very good friends, Antonio Sanchez, got his degree as well. And you also teach vocal performance, I believe, at Berkeley and also
That's,
at Queens College, right?
yes, and also Montclair State University. Yeah,
Wow. And you
state.
have your own album, which was released before the pandemic.
1 week into the pandemic, actually.
Wow.
Oh, not great
Wow.
timing.
So we are going to talk about, well, and to give everybody who's going to be watching this later, because it will be uploaded to the New York Jazz Workshop YouTube. Um, Before you listen to Eberhard, the new composition and final composition of Lyle Mays, everyone must check out his first album,
Mm.
Lyle Mays, which was released back in 1986. It was recorded in 1985. And what's fascinating about that album is that it had a lot of pushback when it came out. Um, Lyle had said that nobody really dug it, and critics
Mm.
were not able to understand, like, for example, Highland Air was written in a sonata form. Nobody understood
Mhm.
that, and they just panned it. But ever since, it's become a cult status album, and it's been one of my favorite albums since college, which is a long time ago.
That's so
So,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah, I love that album. And I've noticed that. Yeah, that's always the favorite of his fans.
yeah, absolutely. So, let's talk about this monumental piece, Eberhard, which was just released a couple of weeks ago, I believe.
The album is just one track. It's 13 minutes long. Um, that's because, as we know, Lyle passed away in February of 2020. So if you read the liner notes, they're written by the great Steve Rodby, bass player of the Pat Metheny Group and Lyle's best friend. And one of the often quoted passages now is, if Lyle had survived, there would have been more. He was definitely planning to make a full length album, which is it makes the whole thing very bittersweet. But I'm so glad that he finished this one piece. Um, the piece was actually written back in 2009 for the Zeltzman Marimba Festival in Appleton, Wisconsin. And he did a full length concert there and decided that he should write a new piece that featured marimbas and vibes, obviously, because there were these great marimba and vibes players there. And also chose to feature the voice, and me singing on it, because I had just finished my master's degree at that point, which you just talked about, and he wanted to, collaborate. So he wrote this huge work for jazz rhythm section, plus electric bass, plus percussion, plus of course all of his keyboards and synthesizers, and two vocals, and I think there were three marimba players, one vibes player. Yeah, and they were doubling on different things. And so we did this live performance of it. It received a standing ovation in the middle of the concert, which, like, how often does that happen? People loved it. It was amazing. And then Lyle basically retired from music in 2011 after, like, one last Pat Metheny quartet tour and a TED convention, TEDx presentation, which is on YouTube. It's awesome. And
Yes.
so for those intervening years between 2011 and 2019, Lyle really wasn't doing anything musically. And I'm his mentee, he's my mentor, and we're very close. And I was talking to him a lot throughout that time. And he was, wonderfully energetic and, you know, so engaged in what I was doing, but just really said, what, I'm done doing my own music, just done. Of course, everybody was hoping he would come back, and my family was just like, hoping for a PMG reunion or something. And then in 2019, he learned that he was sick and he wasn't sure how much time he would have left. And suddenly he became like just totally on fire for getting Eberhard recorded. He said, this is really urgent. This is something I need to put into the world, whatever happens to me, which is a really amazing, touching, moving thing. So it was a long process because there were so many sections of Eberhard. There were, I think, 5 or 6 different recording sessions out in LA, and all the musicians recorded their parts separately to his demo that he had created. And the demo was so good that it almost sounded like a studio recording. He was incredible at programming drums and just finding the best sounds for everything. So, recording to that demo really almost felt like recording to other musicians. And of course, he was playing on the demo as well. So yeah, I can expand more, but that's kind of the context.
Oh yeah, please. I mean, so what we're hearing of his keyboards and the piano solo is actually the demo.
um, no, well, it's both. He played some as part of the demo, and then some at the time.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's really such a striking piece. And one thing that I thought of right away, because Lyle, and I used this I used this word in my review, which I don't know if you saw the review that I wrote.
I actually don't think I saw it yet. I didn't realize it
Oh,
was out. I'm so sorry.
oh yeah, I'll
Thank
have to
you.
send it to you. I said that genius is an often overused word,
Mm-hmm.
but in his case, it really was true. I mean, he was one of the most innovative players in this music in the past 40 something years. And
Mm-hmm.
in terms of keyboards and synthesizers in this music, and I'm going to refer to what Pat just said in his interview with Rick Beato and others, the J word.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead, because this music is all encompassing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, besides Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea, who we just lost, unfortunately, who was one of Lyle's big heroes,
Mm-hmm.
and Joe Zavano, Zavano,
Mm-hmm.
he was the next in line in terms of synthesizer innovator,
Mm-hmm.
because he had always created his own patches. And one thing that I thought of with this piece is because he was an architect and he designed his own house and his sister's house and everything like
Yeah.
that.
The house I grew up in, he designed.
Wow. Oh, amazing. That this piece had the same attention to detail architecturally as it would, a house he built, because he was always into building things with musically with structure and drama and pacing. And it's a 13-minute journey, but it feels much more substantial when you listen to it. It really sounds like you're listening to a full album or maybe a 20-minute piece. And there is a mailing list, groups.io, which is dedicated to being the third iteration of the Pat Metheny mailing list, which was a staple on Yahoo for 20 years. And there are some astute listeners who found on YouTube that there were parts of Eberhard thematically that existed since 1983.
That's correct. Yeah. With the
But
concert with Nana.
right, but were expanded upon. And I think one of the great things about this album is that he has two musicians that were on the very first album. Bill Frisell returns on guitar, and Alex Acuna returns on drums and also percussion. And talk a little bit about the involvement of musicians, because this is also Lyle's biggest album that he ever led, 16 musicians.
Yeah, the largest ensemble.
The largest.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I'll start by talking about just who's on it. Bob Shepard, who was Lyle's longtime friend and collaborator. Bob Shepard was on the Ludwigsburg concerts, the
Yes,
live
that's
version of like
amazing.
Fictionary. Yes, I'm sure that you know it, being such a big fan. So Bob Shepard plays the tenor sax solo and also plays 5 written out woodwind parts. So like I think it's bass clarinet, clarinet, flute, alto flute, and then I think there's more saxophone within the woodwind section. And then there's a 4 cello section, which is like, unusual. Usually you have a string quartet, but this is a section of just 4 cellos. And that cello section and the woodwind section material was actually written in 2019. So like most of it was in 2009, but he was revamping it and writing new parts. While he was dealing with an illness, which was really difficult. So the cellos were really important. I remember when he told me about that he was adding this cello section, he was just so excited to have like this warm, woody lower layer that just felt, exactly what he wanted it to be. So we got 4 LA studio musicians to play those cello parts. And then there is acoustic bass and electric bass. So Steve Rodby on acoustic, Jimmy Johnson of James Taylor fame and many other projects on electric. And then, as you mentioned, Bill Frisell on guitar, and 3 voices, me and Rosanna Eckert, who teaches at University of North Texas. She's an incredible composer herself.
Wow.
You know of Rosanna? You would like her probably.
I think I've heard the name, yeah. And since Lyle goes back to the University of North Texas, and he was really instrumental in that band in 1975.
That's right, Lab 75.
Yeah.
First collegiate ensemble Grammy nomination ever.
Yeah, right.
That was something he was really proud of. Rosanna from UNT, and then her husband, Gary Eckert, singing tenor. So the 3 of us are a vocal section. And then you have Mitch Foreman on organ and other keyboards. And am I missing anybody? I think that might be everybody. Wade, of course, the marimba.
Wade Colbreth.
Yeah, plays the marimba and vibes parts.
Yeah, and that ostinato that begins the beginning of the piece is just one of the most, it's simple, but it's so moving. And then also there's 2 drummers, Jimmy Brandley and of course Alex.
Yes,
and
of course Jimmy, very important. Yeah, actually, so I wanted to clarify something, which is that Jimmy actually played drum set on pretty much the entire thing. And Alex played mostly percussion, and I think he played drum set for a little bit, maybe 5% of the time. But yeah, it was mostly Jimmy. Amazing drummer from LA, tours with jazz musicians and pop musicians, rock musicians alike. He's awesome.
Yeah, because I was thinking, wait, is that Alex? Because it almost sounded like his feel, from the first album. And I'm like, did he play like the drums in the first section?
I actually don't know exactly where he played. I think it was mostly Jimmy throughout, but I wasn't actually at that recording session.
Aha. Oh, wow. Yeah. And within that piece, I mean, like I said, the ostinato is so simple, but at the same time, it's very, very moving, and you have these other elements that almost refer to Lyle's entire oeuvre, and what I mean by that, for example, is those kind of almost whispered sounds in one of the sections sort of harken back to those synth parts at the beginning of Northern Lights of the Alaskan Suite.
I can totally hear that.
And then there's also, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, even some of the stuff, the work that he did with Nana Vasconcelos, who we mentioned a little bit ago. Nana liked to do like vocal percussive sounds
The
and religious vocal
rolling
things.
thing, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that was definitely part of it. Yeah.
And also I really, there was a lot of parts in the production that reminded me of Street Dreams Part 2.
Mm, interesting.
Um, and I think production wise, the piece fits within Lyle Mays and also Street Dreams. Um,
I
you
agree.
know,
Yeah.
Bill Frisell resumes his role wonderfully as pretty much a textural as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to a lead voice. And there's like, he's so well integrated in the mix that you actually don't notice that he's there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sometimes it's like you're not sure if it's Lyle's synths or if it's Bill's sounds. Yeah.
right,
It's a
exactly.
very
And
important underlying texture.
yeah, actually, one of my very favorite sections is the duet that you have with Wade Colbreath's Vibes, because for maybe like 2 bars,
Mm-hmm.
and I was elated, Lyle's lead sound appears for like 2 bars and
Yes.
only 2 bars. And I was like, yes.
That's so cool that you noticed that. If he were here with us talking to you, he would love that you heard that. He said we talked about it because when he was sending me the mixes as we were going along, and I heard that I was like, oh, you put that. We used to call it the prophet sound, even though it's more like an ocarina sound, like
Yeah,
a flute.
right.
And I said I noticed like the prophet is in there for a little bit, and I was like, why not the whole time? And he said, oh, that's very intentional, um, even even very meaningful, and I took that to mean that he was with me, there with me, supporting me, and then he was letting me kind of go off like fly on my own, and
Yeah, well,
that was like the sweetest. I know it's kind of it's kind of intense, but that was like the sweetest little love letter from him, as his niece and mentee,
that was no, that was deep because when he passed away, and this was, I think, one of the few musicians where this ever happened with. The first one was Jimmy Smith when I was in college, because I grew up on Jimmy Smith's music. When Lyle passed away, I cried for like several days.
Mm.
And he was somebody that I never knew, but through the music, um, his music has been so important to me. And I have my MIDI keyboard right
Oh,
here.
nice.
Yeah. And I actually studied with Chase Baird,
Oh,
the
cool.
great tenor player. And I've been started to compose, and I've
Mhm.
composed about like 16 or 17 things. And Lyle's thing is, I mean, obviously I'm not anywhere near that level, but his influence is obviously there. Like, I figured out in Cakewalk, using some plugins, that I
Mhm.
could sort of get that piano sound with the reverb.
Oh, that's so
and
cool.
and I've been trying to tweak one of the square waves to get that sound, but I haven't figured it out.
That's amazing. You're even trying. I wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah. I could send you some of this stuff too.
Yeah.
But you know, Lyle, this piece, so Eberhard Weber, and I want to get back to this. Eberhard was somebody that both he and Pat had a tremendous love for. Obviously, he was on Watercolors, which I consider to be the sort of in utero Pat Metheny Group.
Hmm.
I mean, that's sort of the unofficial first Pat Metheny Group album. And Lyle's only on like 2 or 3 tracks. And
Hmm.
I forget what tune it was, but on his website, the piece of writing that he did where he said that he had to overdub his solo because
Oh, yeah. That's
Manfred
an insane
Eicher
story.
thought something was off. That was like unbelievable. But also he was on Later That Morning,
Later
with
that evening, I think, right? Later
later
that evening.
that yeah, Later That Evening,
Hmm. Eberhard's album.
yeah, with Bill Frisell,
Hmm.
and I forget who the bassist and drummer were, but that's a beautiful album.
Michael D. Pasqua on drums, and then Eberhard on bass.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
And actually, Lyle was approached by Manfred to do his first album in 1982, but Lyle had said no, he wasn't
I
quite
actually
ready.
did. I was gonna say I didn't know that, but I realized I did know that. I forgot. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just something, this piece, I mean, there's so many layers to it. For example, the gamelan section, I
Mhm.
guess you could say, is
Yeah,
sort of,
you're correct. That is, he meant that for sure. It was
yeah, I
gamelan
mean,
inspired.
Rainer Bruninghaus did some of those things with synths and Eberhard's work, but to me, it's sort of an extension on the sort of concept of Imaginary Day, the title track.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also there's elements of like the way up
Mm-hmm.
as well in the piece. Um, I'd like to think that if Pat and Lyle had did like one last thing, this would have been like a combination of the way up and what Pat was doing on like Kin,
That would have
for
been
example,
amazing.
because Kin initially was supposed to be a PMG album, but then
Definitely didn't know that. Yeah.
yeah, because I thought like there was some sort of rumor that Pat and Lyle had gotten back together in 2013 to start writing something, and eventually the plans were scrapped or something like that, and it became
Mm-hmm.
what it became. um but it's just Lyle's gifts for storytelling is just amazing. And listening to the album, you wouldn't know that he was in the condition that he was in because it just sounds so effervescent.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, he became effervescent during that process. It was incredible. I think he understood that it was important to come back to music and to surround himself with the people that he loved and that he loved musically. And the energy that that provided for him was like it was unbelievable. I mean, that's why, I mean, I knew that he was very, very sick, but it was still shocking um, that he didn't continue on because the energy that he had was incredible.
Yeah,
Despite what he was
because
doing.
weren't there plans to record a full album with you and the band around 2009 when the piece was originally conceived?
Well, he had started talking about that. We actually did another concert in 2010 at the Gilmore Keyboard Festival in
Mhm.
Michigan with me and Steve Rodby and Paul McCandless of Oregon and Mark Walker and Lyle, just a quintet. So not the large ensemble concert, but like the small group. And we did like versions of Slink and Highland Air and Chirino, and then Before You Go, and some new pieces that he had written that were only performed then. And I think that he really was getting excited about maybe doing an album with that ensemble. But I think, I mean, he says this in some interviews that he was kind of just down about the financial situation in jazz,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
things had really changed since, his time touring with the PMG, and just felt like, if I want to do my own music, there's just there's no good way to do it. There's no funding. Like, and he's kind of right, except, the interesting thing about this project is that uh, some investors got in touch with me, like like shortly after Lyle passed away, and said like, we've been trying to get in touch with Lyle for years, and and we really want to fund one of his projects. Like, they read that interview that he had said, I feel like the music business left me,
right.
and so I got back in touch with them, and I was like, well, I have this one thing that I'm going to release, and I actually do need help. And if you want to contribute, like, let's figure out a way to do it. And they ended up just totally being the real deal, like wonderful people and like diehard fans. And we became friends, and they funded the whole post production process of Eberhard, which is
Wow.
yeah, so amazing. That's why I was able to release it when I did. It might have been longer that it was in the vault. So yeah, I guess I got a little off track, but all that's to say is that I think Lyle did, maybe did want to keep doing stuff, but he got down about the financial picture in jazz. Understandably, when you come from like a 35-year career,
Yeah,
of that level that he had, it's hard for all of us.
yeah, and I think just as a fan, one of the things that has always been sort of concerning to me is the advent of streaming. Um, because with streaming, not only are the artists sort of not fairly compensated unless it's like Bandcamp or a service like that,
Mhm.
but the audio quality sometimes isn't really the best. And I'm an audiophile. I have Focal Cora 826 speakers
Mhm.
and uh, yeah, a shit Bifrost DAC and Audio Labs
Mhm.
CD transport, and I have some stuff to play Super Audio CD as well. And I feel like physical product is still important, and I still try to get CDs whenever I can. And I've had
Mhm.
to rebuild my collection, with some help because I had a fire in
I heard that.
January.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. This is my new place, and it's wonderful. It's in Yonkers here.
Oh, nice.
So I live, in the Metro NYC area.
Mhm.
But it was faulty electric, and my
Mhm.
entire everything I ever owned went. Um, I had two cats, they passed away. My mother's ashes burned, her poetry, everything that she had, because she was a great writer. She also did a little bit of singing. All that stuff was gone. My collection, which included Lyle's entire catalog, plus Pat's, which thankfully Pat's management sent me a care package with like virtually his entire catalog, which
Oh,
was
that's so
amazing,
nice.
including Zero Tolerance for Silence,
Whoa. Okay.
which is amazing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, all that stuff was lost. And so hearing this piece too, it's kind of bittersweet for me because it reminds me of um, when I was in my previous place. And there was a particular time where I was listening to the self-titled album,
Mhm.
and Close to Home came on, and I
Mm.
just started crying because it was reminding me of my mom, because that close to home, literally, almost like you said, how Lyle's prophet sound was like a little send off for you, and you knew that he was close.
Mhm.
For some reason, when I heard, when I was listening that one evening with the lights out and everything, it just impacted me that way. And that was something that my mom always kind of liked, that tune
That's
also.
oh man,
And
it's beautiful.
yeah, one thing that I always wish I could have told Lyle about was so I have cerebral palsy and I use a power wheelchair, and even my wheelchair in the fire was destroyed, and I I had to get it replaced. But I used to have a wheelchair called the iBot, which was developed by Johnson and Johnson, and it was a chair that could literally stand up to eye level. The wheels would climb on top of each other and
Mhm.
like stand up and balance with gyroscopes.
Oh, cool.
And it could also climb stairs, but it was the
Mhm.
most technically advanced wheelchair ever. And I would think that, being the tech head and the science mind that he would have been fascinated um,
Mm. I think you're right. Yeah,
by that.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I have a funny story. Antonio Sanchez told me how he had beaten Lyle at pool during a
Mhm.
tour, and then just Lyle was so driven, and he just was practicing and practicing and practicing between gigs, and just obliterated
Mhm.
him, every
Yep.
time, like that sort of Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant um type thing. I guess Lyle was a football
Yeah.
fan, right?
Yeah, huge football fan because well, he's from northern Wisconsin, and I'm actually from Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Oh
So
wow.
Lyle grew up being a huge Packers fan, and all throughout his life, he had all this Packer paraphernalia that he would wear on the game day, and a cheese head, and like Packer pillows, and my mom would always send him new stuff for his birthday.
That's so funny. And he
Yeah,
was really, I guess competitive in
yeah,
a way too.
very competitive. Yeah, and he speaking of the pool playing, he went on to become an amateur national pool champion. Like he won, I can't tell you the name of the tournament. I don't know which one it is, but he
I
won the
heard about
national
that.
tournament. Yeah. And I actually found, so I've been, going through a lot of things, and I found he had so many other like smaller competition pool trophies. I found like 15 pool trophies, and I was like, what?
Did
So
other
yeah,
people know who he was, or did they just know him
did
as a billiards guy?
I don't think that he would always tell people. No, yeah, just he just go and play and have his pool friends, and yeah, he was a pretty cool person.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he seemed like so down to earth as well,
Yeah, he
and
was.
so generous with his time with people to
Hmm.
explain his compositions and
Yeah, he loves
process.
talking about that. Hmm.
And the Ludwigsburg concert, Ludwigsburg, that's really to me, and I miss having that one too. That was a recording that really I think is the best recording of him as a player ever.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
I think so, and he would agree with you.
he was
He felt that way
swinging
about
his
that album.
butt off, like, because there was this this BS from critics and some fans that, oh, he can't swing, he can't swing, he can't swing.
He
No, all you need to do is listen to that recording.
can swing.
And
Yeah.
and I even talked to somebody recently. We were talking about Keith Jarrett, and I mentioned Lyle, and he said that Lyle is no Keith, and I just was
Mhm.
like, you can't even really compare them for one.
No. Yeah.
And to insinuate that Lyle didn't know Mozart and the tradition back and forward, both jazz and classical, is, yeah.
It's just grossly incorrect. Yeah, he was so into classical music. He almost, I mean, he loved all of it, but classical music was hugely influential. He basically brought classical ideologies and forms to jazz and tried to,
Right, right.
structure jazz like you would think of structuring classical music, which is,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
he's not the only person that did stuff like that, but that's, pretty huge innovation.
Yeah, I mean, and then like his time in the group, Pat had more of a jazz perspective,
Hmm.
the J
Hmm.
word again. Whereas Lyle had that broader, uh, what he would say, I guess, was a European sensibility. Um,
Hmm.
he, I think he, when he was talking about the conflicts that they had with Manfred, with ideology, how he came from a different German school
Hmm.
than maybe
Hmm.
Manfred did.
Mm.
And
Sure.
really he supplemented those sort of more traditional jazz things of Pat's with this absolute incredible writing. And it's just that this piece, he is sorely missed. And with that, is there any plans perhaps down the line to bring out archival releases or of concerts or anything?
So I'm not really sure right now. Lyle, mostly because Lyle had incredibly high standards, as you know, as you can tell,
Yeah.
and anything that was put out into the world, he wanted it to meet those standards. So it's hard to then like think of releasing something that he didn't approve of.
Right.
Um, However, there is that the concert I was referencing, the Zeltzman Marimba concert. I have the full recording of that concert, and it's awesome. It's so I'm thinking of I probably will put that on the website at some point. I don't think I'll try to sell it as like as an album, but I'll
Yeah.
probably allow fans to hear that and hear the premiere of Eberhard. It's a lovely set of music, and Lyle sounds amazing. So I'm considering that might
Mm.
happen. And then one plan I have, if I can raise the funds, is that I really want to record a short big band album of his music that he had written in 2010 for a UNT residency, University of North Texas residency.
Oh.
Yeah, it's an arrangement of Highland Air, In the Heat of the Day, Long Life, and then something else I can't think of right now. At least four pieces that I think like if I got like an incredible big band together and had Steve Robbie produce it, it could be amazing. So that's my dream. I really want to make that happen, but
Wow.
we'll see.
Yeah, and I would be happy at any point if you ever do that. I also write liner notes. I'd be very, very happy to maybe contribute something.
Oh, that would be awesome.
I
Nice.
actually wrote liners for Antonio's big band album.
Oh, really? I have to
Um,
see that. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
So real briefly, just talk about the cover photo because I think that's really, really evocative. I noticed you have it behind you.
Yeah, that's the cover photo minus the actual artwork, and then that's the LP behind right there. Yeah, and the CD. I have yeah, a lot of this graphic, like I said earlier. So the cover photo, I'm glad that you said it was a photo because most people think it's a painting. It's a photo. It's a long exposure photo of Malibu Beach in California, at dusk, right before a storm. So
Wow.
it's really special. And when I saw it, like somebody, I was telling the graphic designer like what I was looking for, and he sent me some ideas. And I saw that picture, and I was like, it just like struck me. I thought it was going to be so impossible to find this cover photo, and then like that was it. It was just so perfect, and yeah,
Yeah, it's a perfect bookend to this photo, which
yeah.
I don't even know what this photo is on
I'm
the
not
side.
sure either. It's. I know for sure that it's something that it doesn't look like what it is. I have to ask. I have to confirm from Steve Rodby what it is. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a very it's it's like a album cover design that's somewhere between ECM and like Windham Hill,
uh-huh.
kind of.
Yeah,
But it's just like, you know, even Street Dreams. I don't know what the cover of Street Dreams actually is.
yeah,
but
yeah.
but
It's kind of the same idea. I know that. So Lyle really wanted it always to be about the music.
yeah,
He really, and he wanted to provide something that didn't tell people what to think, you know?
right.
So that was with song titles and with um covers. He was trying to not prescribe anything, just to sort of like give like a palette for you to make your own interpretation. And so
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what I was
yeah.
going for with the picking this picture.
Oh,
And
that's fantastic. Now, how about for you and plans that you have and your own work? Um,
mm,
now that the pandemic
well,
is sort of where it's at,
abated a little
abated,
bit.
yeah, what do you
Yeah.
see with your own work?
Well, I want to make another album for the Aubrey Johnson group, which was the instrumentation was piano, bass, drums, bass clarinet, doubling on alto sax, and violin and voice.
Wow.
That's the ensemble for my album Unraveled that came out in March 2020. We're finally doing a CD release concert on October 7th in New York City at Rockwood Music Hall. A year and a half late, but I just felt like, it needed to happen. It just has to be kind of, an end cap on the whole process that took place mostly virtually since the pandemic. But yeah, I want to record another album with the same ensemble. I was considering like something else, but I really feel like I love how those sounds work together, and
Hmm.
I love the possibilities that violin provides, and violin and bass clarinet, and like the other doubles that women players have. I really like that. I love writing for textures, kind of like Lyle did on a smaller scale.
Yeah, something that I like about your work is something that it's something that as I've been studying theory with Chase, it's something that's really brought to my attention because I'm kind of going this way myself because I just turned 40 in June and I always meant to, because I've always had a musical ear. I grew up with jazz and classical always.
Mhm.
And I've always had some acumen of something for playing. Of course, I have cerebral palsy, so I primarily have the use of my left hand. So the
Mhm.
dexterity thing is a little bit of a challenge. That's what's so great about MIDI.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but I did sing a little bit in high school in the choir, and then
Cool.
my Buddhist temple choir I'm a member of, and we're doing a project again
Mhm.
soon. But the using of jazz as an influence to go somewhere else.
Mhm.
Um, that's what I'm really digging about your work, and then Chase and Antonio and
Mhm.
Tana.
Mhm.
Um, And then, in New York, as you know, there's such a rich culture of different music. And it's a
Yeah.
microcosm of the world.
Mm-hmm. It's a great way of putting it. I agree.
And, back to Eberhard, has Mr. Weber been able to hear the piece?
He has heard the piece. Yes. I sent him some CDs, and we've actually we got to do a Zoom call, which was really, really cool.
Wow.
He suffered a stroke back in 2007, I believe,
Yeah.
and left him unable to play. So yeah, I wasn't, and he's, in his early 80s, so I wasn't sure what to expect in terms of energy level and everything, but he was like incredibly engaging and so funny and just, so interested in talking about Lyle and his music and their collaborations. And he's just incredibly touched by this
Yeah.
tribute to him. He's like, I can't even, it's really hard for me to say how much this means to me. And of course he loves the piece, and yeah, it's really sweet, really sweet.
Yeah. In my own creations, I actually created, because you can make your own. I use this plugin, it's called Air Expand 2, and it's got like 2,500 patches, and you could customize them.
Wow.
So I've kind of created a patch that I call Eberhard W bass, which is
Oh,
I blend an
cool.
acoustic and a fretless together,
Oh, wow.
and I
Oh, I love
kind of
that.
get that thing because I love that sound. And something that also Chase and I have talked about is sort of like parallel influences. And one of the things that's fascinating about Lyle and uh, Mr. Weber's pianist and keyboardist in many years, Rainer Bruninghaus,
Mhm.
is when you listen to them, if you listen to Fregoit, which is Bruninghaus's first album on ECM, there's a lot of, I guess, vocabulary overlaps.
Mhm.
Um,
I have to hear that. I haven't heard that.
and also with the synth stuff, um, I wonder if maybe Lyle was influenced at all by his work,
It's
um,
definitely possible.
which is
For sure
something that
possible.
we will never really know.
I
But
know.
it's
I
a
know. Mhm.
fascinating window into his mind, and his influence really is so palpable in other forms of music, because even in video game music you can hear like Lyle's influence.
Mm. Yeah. The sounds. I
um,
don't know much about it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, for example, Street Fighter 2 was a very popular game back then, and it's now up to its fifth iteration.
Mhm.
But there's one of the Japanese, they called them arranged soundtracks,
Mhm.
and it uses like the Lyle patch, from the Roland JX in like one of the
Oh, really?
character themes.
Oh, I gotta
And
look it up.
I'll have to find that for you. And then there's another track. There was a Street Fighter 2 Japanese animation movie in 1994, and there's a track that uses the Roland GR300 guitar synthesizer and the Lyle sound. So it's kind of like, a
That's
reference to,
amazing.
Pat and Lyle. And I'm not sure how many gamers really picked that up, but I had right away.
You
And
are one hip gamer.
yeah, his influence was just amazing, and I'm so grateful to what he brought to the table. And it always brings continuous inspiration to me. And I'm just learning about like inversions right now on all 12 keys, and I'm thinking, oh man, I wish I had that kind of level to get to that sort of harmonic language that he did, 'cause it's
Mm.
inspiring, because I hear stuff all the time and I'm like, ooh, because this is music. You could listen to Lyle's music for years and not uncover everything.
Yes. That's why people love it. And there's always more to glean from it, from
Yeah,
each listening. And that's, of course, as you know, completely intentional. He wanted to write
absolutely.
on, 10 levels, you know, appeal to like the least common denominator, the non-musician just listening for a melody, all the way to like, you know, the serious jazz player and composer. Do you
Yeah.
have his songbook, by the way, that just came out?
No, but that would be awesome. Like,
Yeah, I'll get you a Lyle
oh
care package. Yeah,
wow,
we'll make it
wow.
happen.
That's
But the
that's
songbook is incredible. Came out in June, and Lyle worked on it with Pierre Piscitelli, this wonderful, you should meet him, pianist who lives in Queens. And they actually worked for a whole year, like I think starting in 2018, editing the scores and just making it, you know, accurate and ready for consumption. And it's published on Amazon only, and it's amazing. It's really, really
wow.
well done. Yeah.
That's incredible. So where can people, I know you could go to lylemays.com, the
Mhm.
new website, and
Yep.
they could go to aubreyjohnsonmusic.com,
Mhm.
but pretty much people can purchase or download or stream all the music wherever they're the
Wherever
outlet for it.
streaming happens. Yeah. Yeah. So it's on all streaming platforms, including Tidal. And we're working on getting a super hi-fi version for Tidal. It's almost done. And then lylemays.com/store, you can buy vinyl and t-shirts and CDs and posters and mugs. And and then it's also for sale on Amazon, all three of the three formats, the digital download, vinyl and CD. And then it's you can search, it's on different websites too for like that's for CD and LP sales. So it's
Wow.
all over. But yeah, the best place to go is the lylemays.com/store. That's where it's gonna come back to the estate and fund future projects. So
That is fantastic, and I'm actually going to stop the recording right here, Aubrey.
sure.
So for the New York Jazz Workshop, I'm Shizuka Shearn. Peace, love, groove, and keep swinging, everybody.